Hello, everyone. My name is Nora Moraga-Lui, and I'm the Rainforest Journalism Fund Manager at the Pulitzer Center on Crisis Reporting. Welcome to today's webinar, which is going to provide some introduction to digital mapping. I'm going to start off by making a few notes about logistics. So first, you'll notice a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Please feel free to insert your questions here at any time during today's presentation. And you'll note that also this webinar is being recorded for future viewing, so you can always refer to it as a resource in the future. Now I'd like to quickly introduce who we are before I pass this presentation over to my colleagues. The Rainforest Journalism Fund is an initiative of the Pulitzer Center on Crisis Reporting, which is a nonprofit organization based in Washington, D.C. The Pulitzer Center raises awareness of underreported global issues through direct support for quality journalism across all media platforms and through a unique program of education and public outreach. So now I'm going to turn over this presentation to Hari Sujati, who is our Southeast Asia Regional Coordinator for the Rainforest Journalism Fund.
Thank you, Nora. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining our webinar. This is the second of the two series of data journalism webinar. Our speaker, Kuek Ser Kuang Keng, we call him Keng usually. He's an award-winning digital journalist. He's also the founder of Data a training program that helps journalists to integrate data journalism into daily reporting. We already have introduction to data, our first webinar. And now Keng will also explain to us how we can digital mapping, the introduction to digital mapping. As a journalist, we need to, especially the online or a digital journalist, telling story with data. And Keng will explain to us. There's a presentation and also demo, and you will enjoy it. As I enjoy previous webinar. So I would like to give the time to Keng. Please, Keng.
Thank you, Nora, and thank you, Harry. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. For those who joined us in our first webinar, this is our second webinar on data journalism. The first one is we talk about data journalism, right? So the second one, we are going to talk about digital mapping for reporting purpose, all right? Some of the house rule is that I'm going to, the whole session takes about 1 hour. Then I try to keep it, split it into two. The first half an hour will be a short presentation from me. If you have any questions, feel free to leave the questions in the Q&A box. I will check the questions during my presentation and I'll stop and address them, right? And the second part of the presentation will be a live demonstrations of a tool, a map making tool called Google My Maps, which is the easiest and the simplest tool that we can use to make map. All right. Feel free to give any reaction if I talk too fast. If I am my voice is breaking up. Please let me know in the Q&A box, and then I will try to adjust. Right. I'm going to share my screen with you now. All right, you should be able to see my slides now. The same goes for the first webinar. You're able to access the slides from this link. I'm going to put the link in the Q&A so that you all can have access to the link.
We can also post it in the chat for participants. There we go.
Yeah, then I'll just put in the chat. So that's the link where you can find today's slides. You can download it. And also that you can access the data samples that I'm going to use today. All right. All right, back to the slides. So you don't have to take screenshots, you know, from time to time. You don't even have to take notes, but taking notes is a good practice, actually. Cool. Thank you, Harry, for introducing me. Just a little bit of information. Data N is my company. We do training, we do advocacy. We also do collaborations with newsrooms and journalists on data journalism. So we have provided trainings in the region. Some of the newsrooms that have attended our trainings, including BBC World Service. We are also currently working with Google News Initiative to roll out more training webinar, especially during this pandemic, for journalists in not just data journalism, but in general data digital tools for reporting. So today we are going to cover why we need to make map in our reporting. You know, how map can help us in reporting, not just showing the location, but also help us to find stories and analyze data and get us insights from the data. Then we are going to talk about how do we make the charts and how do we do the digital mapping. And also we'll look at different visualization tools and usability studies. Right. One thing that I want to share with you is that mapping is not a new technology, right? This is a map made by Jon Snow. This is not the Jon Snow in the GOT, Game of Thrones, yeah? This is the Jon Snow. He's a doctor. He's a doctor when the cholera outbreak happened. You know, it is very similar to the current COVID-19 outbreak. There was a cholera outbreak in London, in the Soho area in 1854, right? So this doctor, Jon Snow, right, that time, people did not know that cholera was spread via water. They didn't know that whether it is a waterborne disease or is it an airborne disease, right? So they are trying to stop the outbreak. And what Jon Snow did, this doctor, was that he collected all the data, right? You can imagine that the data during the time, more than 100 years ago, right? The data would be like a stack of papers, right? All the records there, right? He then drew a map and he plotted the number of deaths in the map, right? So you can see that the black color bars, right? The length of the bar shows the number of deaths on this address, right? This is the Soho area map. So he plotted all these cases on this map. And after that, he also plotted another thing, you know, that is he suspected that this is a waterborne disease, but he needed to find evidence, you know, to prove that. So he also plotted the location of water pump. You can see this pump here, right? It's not very clear. Let's look at here, right? So he plotted also the pumps, the water pumps in this area. Because that time there was no water pipe, right? So people have to go to the water pump to get the water for whatever, you know, daily things they want to do, washing, cooking, drinking, and all those things, right? And he observed one thing, that is that the number of deaths happens, right, nearer to the pump at the Broad Street well, right? The street well in the Broad Street. Sorry, the well at the Broad Street. So the next thing was that he decided to close down this well, right? So that people cannot get water from here. They have to go to other water pumps. And that actually stopped the outbreak of the disease. And that also proved his point that, you know, the disease is waterborne. It is spread by water. So what about, there are some places that are further from the pump, for example, here and here, right? So further investigation actually found that, you know, these are the places they travel all the way to get water from this well, because, you know, they prefer the water from this well because some of them are brewery, you know, they make beers, and they prefer the water from this well because the well works better with their products. And that explains the, you know, high number of deaths in those locations further away from the well. But they are all connected to this well. Right. So imagine this is a use of map. If that time Jon Snow did not plot the number of deaths on this map, right, it is very hard for him to find the relationship between the number of deaths and the well, correct? You imagine he got a stack of documents with all the details, but how could he imagine or figure out the relationship between the well and the number of deaths, right? So by using a map, right, you're able to see the relationship very clear that, the deaths, they occurred nearer to this well, and you can further test your hypothesis by shutting down this well, all right? So today, if you go to London, you go to this location at Broad Street, you'll still be able to see there's a dummy well. It's not a real well, right? It's a replicate of the well, and you'll be able to see Jon Snow's name there and his story. This is the history, right? So map making, right, and using map for analysis to solve problems is not a new technique, right? But because today we have better access to digital tools, and better access to data, so we are able to make more maps in a much shorter time and a much efficient way to help our reporting and also our investigation as journalists, right? Today, the whole thing map making is for us to do our reporting as journalists. I'm not trying to teach you how to be a map maker, right? That is not what we want to do. We use map to help with our reporting, right? I'm going to show you several stories that use maps as part of the reporting and also part of the investigation. So this first story is one project that I assisted. I helped them to get the data, to process the data, and to make this map, right? I'm going to quickly show you this story. This story is about crime, race, and surveillance cameras in the city of St. Louis in US, right? So it's a very long investigation. It took the team 18 months to complete this investigation. So I was involved as their data analyst, and I was assigned to make this map. So in this map, what happened is that we plot the circles, right? The circles, blue colors and yellow colors, those are surveillance cameras installed in different parts of the city. The black cross, right? You see all the cross, those are the homicides that happened in the year of 2018. And the colors of the block represents the percentage of black population in each different block, right? So we are trying to find whether the surveillance camera were installed at locations where the most homicides happen. And true enough, our investigation, our visualization show that that is not the case. So for example, right, when you see there are homicides here, right, there are many homicides happening in this area, but you can see that there are very few cameras here, right, only several cameras here. And this area, they call it the north part of St. Louis, is mostly black neighborhoods. And not only we plot it by looking at the black population percentage, we can also change it to income. And you're able to see that the areas with darker red colors are areas with lower incomes. So as usual, I expected, the crimes, the homicides happen in those areas, right? With major black population as well as poorer neighborhoods. But the surveillance cameras were not installed there. Or not to say were not installed there, but the numbers of surveillance cameras there were much lower than the numbers of cameras at some wealthier neighborhood. For example, here, this is downtown St. Louis, and there are more white population and more wealthier people staying there. So you can see that there are actually many cameras here, right? You can see that the whole street is full of cameras, right? So this brings the questions of, whether the police or the local governments have allocated their resources correctly. Is it because the strong lobby from the wealthier neighborhood? That's why they can have more cameras, or because of other factors. It is a it's a long report and investigations, looking at different factors. But so the purpose of this map is that by using a maps, we are able to establish the relationship between the cameras and the homicides, right? and the demographics in this city. Without looking at the map, it's very hard to prove to the readers that this is really what happened. And you can only see the relationship, not by drawing a chart, not by using just spreadsheet or Excel to do the analysis. You need to plot it out on a map, and you also need to present the map to your readers for them to better understand the arguments that you are trying to make here, right? So map is not just to show you the location, but it is able to show you insights and relationships among different factors, right? Let me just go back to my presentation. The second story is a story done by Reuters looking at the refugees from Myanmar, right? This is an award-winning story. This story won the Data Journalism Awards 2019, right? The story is called Life in the Camps. It's looking at the Rohingya crisis in 2017, where the Rohingya refugees from Myanmar, they fled to Bangladesh. So first they use satellite images, right? The maps and the satellite images to let you see where are the settlements, the refugees camps, right? At the borders between Bangladesh and Myanmar, right? So this is before and this is after. You can see how the refugee camps have expanded, right? And the interesting thing that they use map and data to find the story for this project is that they look at the location of the latrines. Latrines actually makeshift toilets, right? Because the refugees camp, they don't have proper infrastructure. So this is a makeshift toilets, right? So how do they get the data? They get the data from the UN agencies that is managing, that is setting up the refugee camps. So they got the data, they map it out, all the makeshift toilets. Then they overlap it with the location of the water pumps. Because there is no water supply in the refugee camps, refugees have to dig for their own water pumps, right? To get water for drinking, for washing, for their daily purposes. And the interesting things happen when you overlap the locations of the water pumps with the location of the makeshift toilets. And this is when they realize that, wow, at some locations, both the water pumps and the latrines, the toilets are very close to each other. So then they sent, because based on the data, you cannot know that whether there is maybe this is a mistake, right? You don't know whether this is what is happening on the ground. So then they sent their photographers to those locations and took these photos. So you can see this is the water pump and this is the toilet. And what happened here is that contamination will happen, right? Yeah. And if you then they look at the map closer, and they found all these locations. And then again they took photos. For example, here, this is where they stay, the shelter, their makeshift houses, right? This is the latrines, the makeshift toilets, and this is the water pump, right? So what happens is that cross-contamination can happen easily, and this brings health problems. This spreads disease, in the refugee camp. Whether there are many locations, with such problems, right? But if you can plot the two locations on the same map, and further, you can actually do a calculation, to find out, where are, how many locations, for example, there are when the toilets and the water pumps are, for example, within 1 meter to each other. You can actually do what we call a geolocation analysis using the data that you have, right? To identify all those locations. This is something that not even the United Nations agencies that is managing the refugees can realize, right? So it's a very smart way of using data and map to find the stories, right? And then they have other data about the diseases and things like that, right? If you can download the deck, you're able to access all these stories, right, in my PowerPoint presentation. Right. The other stories I want to show you is that this a map that we always use is to show how people vote during an election. Right. This is what we call a choropleth map. So in this case, this is the story done by Bloomberg. Right. It is a very easy. It's a very simple, straightforward story that tells you that 5 maps that why Macron beat Le Pen in the 2017 French presidential election, right? So first, it shows you yellow colors shows the support of Macron. The blue color shows the support of Le Pen. And what interesting is this graphic, right? It put side to side 2 maps, right, with different variable. The first one is the support enjoyed by Le Pen, the votes that she got. The second map is the unemployment rate. So you can see that both match each other, right? The pattern, the general pattern. So what the conclusion here that the observation that you can notice here is that the areas with higher unemployment rates tend to vote for Le Pen, right? Then another maps that shows you the votes garnered by Macron compared with the number of the percentage of voters with higher education degrees. So you can see that areas where voters have higher educations, they tend to vote for Macron, right? So it's very straightforward but very effective way of telling people what is happening using map, right? So the purpose I'm showing you all this story is just that I want you to know that map is not just for you to show location. It is able to show insights to help you to explain things better. This is a map that I made a few years ago when I was with PRI.org. PRI, it's Public Radio International. It is a newsroom based in Boston and Minnesota. So I was there as a data journalist, and we were looking at the forest lost in the Borneo Island. And I was managed to get the data from Global Forest Watch. 2 weeks ago, we had one webinar by Global Forest Watch, GFW. And the speaker from GFW actually showed us how can we use the data and the maps from their websites. This is exactly what I did a few years ago. I extracted the data from their websites and I make this GIF. So this is a GIF file. This is not really a video, a GIF that keeps looping. So we found that this is a very effective way to show people, to explain to people, how serious the forest loss in the Borneo Island and what are the purposes that drive deforestation. So for example, we also plot the red color stands for oil palm plantation, and the yellow colors are pulpwood plantation, right? Map also helps you to personalize news experience, right? For example, these 2 maps, right? On the left is a map that shows the COVID-19 number of cases in different parts, different counties in the US. The right-hand side, the stories it was published by El País. It was a publication based in Spain. And this is about the elections in Spain in let me see the story. So let me just show you the story. You can, yep. Right. So this is the most visited, the most popular election story, right? That the publication has done during the whole election. The election was in 2019, right? May, right? Because people can check their own neighborhood based on the map. So, for example, you can click on it, and this is the Madrid, the capital, and you can explore how your neighborhood voted compared to the neighborhood next to you, right? So different colors here represent the votes percentage enjoyed by different parties, right? Okay. So in this way, right, you're not just looking at the whole national or a district level voting behaviors. You're able to drill in and look at what is relevant to you. For example, you want to look at the city that the neighborhood that you are staying in, or you want to look at your hometown, where you are from, how they voted, things like that, right? Or where you work, right? Whether it's a neighborhood that is more supportive of the left-wing party or the right-wing party, right? That sort of thing. So people actually spend a lot of time on this kind of applications because it's able to personalize the news content. For example, this story done by BuzzFeed News, it helps you to locate where your county and how many cases in your county. For example, when I was in New York, I used to live in a place called Jackson Heights. It's in Queens. Yep. So I am able to look at it, based on the color. I guess it's quite bad. Yeah, actually, the whole New York City is quite bad. Yep. So you're able to dive in, check your neighborhood, and compare with other areas. So maps, an interactive map is able to help you to personalize your news experience, right? So very quickly, I'm going to go through when you are making maps, right? There are some mistakes that you should try to avoid, right? So what doesn't work? The first one, I think I've showed this in my webinar last week. Changing face of America. You look at it, this is a map, right? But the data actually has nothing to do with the map. It is a fake map right here. So you look at the map, you thought that, oh, this is a map, and then it's changing face of America. You look at the US population by race and ethnicity. But then you realize that why that the white people, they are red color, they all live this part in the US. And black people live here, right? And Hispanic people live here. Where are the Asians? The Asians are at the corners. So what happened is this. What is this map trying to tell me? It even draws out, the borders for each state, right? But is actually not a map. It's actually 3 bars. 1 bar is here, 1 bar showing the population distribution in 2010. The other bar is showing the prediction of the ethnic distribution in 2060. So this is the bar showing that 64% are white, 12% black, 16% Hispanic, right? And this is another bar, right? I'm not sure what happened to the Asian here. The Asian here is like totally disappeared from 2010, right? And the prediction is that in 2016, the white people will be less than 50%, right? So this is actually a 3 bar, but the designer somehow decided that, he want to make it into a map. And this, mind you, this was published by NBC Nightly News, one of the most popular, evening news in the US, right? And using this as a map is very, very confusing. So something that, if there's no need for a map, don't use a map, all right? This is another story that I want to show you. It's called Human Terrain from the Pudding. The Pudding is a very good website in terms of data visualization and data journalism. But they like to experiment. And this is one of the experiments that I don't think is very helpful. So what happened is that they try to plot the populations in different corners, at different corners of the world, right? So you're able to zoom out, and then as you can see that it loads very slow, right? Because there are so many bars that it has to show, right? So you can see that let's go to Southeast Asia. It loads very, very slow. When things load very slow, especially when you're in a country where broadband is not that common, you actually drains your users' data plan. Okay, remember that. Especially when the users, they all trying to access your data, your content from mobile phone. That is not something that your users would want to experience, right? Like you open up this page, after that, 500 megabytes of your data is gone, right? And you can see that it loads very, very, very slow. So again, this looks fancy. This looks also very sophisticated, looks very advanced, but it just doesn't serve any good information purpose, right? So just another reminder that I have been saying since last week is that our job as journalists is to deliver information as effective as possible. Our job is not to make the prettiest design in the world, right? So every time when you want to make a map, think about this, is a map necessary? If I want to make a map, should I make it very complicated or should I just make a simple map? That as long as it is able to deliver the information, right, that I want to deliver, then that is considered a good map, all right? Remember that, right? This is over designing and this use up too much resources, right? And this is not a very good user experience, right? Because of the speed. Okay. This is another example of over designing, right? As you can see that they put the pie charts, and not just one pie chart, but multiple pie charts over the map. Sometimes, so if you look at the example on the right, if you want to compare something in different countries, right, sometimes a map is not necessary, right? Because, for example, this is comparing different European countries, right? In this case, right, the geographical locations of each country is not that important, right? Even if you just use a list of bar charts, or you just use multiple pie charts, right? You put them side to side without a map. That is easier for your users to understand, to make comparison, and not like this, right? In this case, right, the map is meaningless, right? You don't have to tell me that, this is Belgium, this is UK, things like that, because it doesn't help me, right? What the information here that's important is that the different statistics in different countries. By the way, this is in Italian. It shows you the size of the pie, shows you the numbers of Italian diasporas in those countries, and the different colors in the pie chart is actually shows you the media, the types of media, whether it's radio or television, that they consume. These two infographics. It's very confusing, but if you just look at it, without the need to extract information from it, it looks good, right? The color and everything, it looks like some good design, right? But things that look pretty doesn't mean that they are effective in delivering information. So just remember that. Right, the other thing that when you're using maps, that maps is sometimes it can be very misleading. So for example, this is the map of Canada, and it shows you that the provinces where the First Nation is the indigenous people in Canada, are the majority, and they show you this two provinces, right? And looking at the map here, if you don't understand about Canadian population, right, you might think that, oh, the indigenous people, the numbers of them are quite high because they took up a huge area, in the country. But actually, this is the area that is very near to the North Pole, and not many people live there. So the First Nations, the indigenous people population is actually just 5% of the total population. But if you just show this map without showing the pie, right, it looks like they are a huge number, right? Because the maps here. So sometimes geographic accuracy, doesn't represent the numbers behind them. I'm going to show you one video very quickly to show you what I mean.
Every presidential election year, there is this one visual aid that we see over and over again.
Show the Mitt Romney map.
Look at that map.
Let's go back to the 2000 map.
And it is in dire need of a redesign. Just look at this map. It's not just unhelpful, it's actually misleading. It shows the states that Mitt Romney and Barack Obama won in 2012. Without more information, it's really hard to tell that Obama actually won. He beat Romney by more than 100 electoral votes. So while this map does a great job telling you that Romney won Montana, for example, what it doesn't tell you is how much that victory doesn't matter. It's because Montana only gets 3 electoral votes. Massachusetts gets 4 times as many, and you can barely find it on the map. That's because the people who made this map made a choice. They chose to prioritize geographic accuracy over electoral importance. And geographically accurate maps are great for road trips, but they don't do a very good job telling us how the country voted. So some designers have tried other solutions. They're making different maps called cartograms. These maps distort the state's shape so that their physical size corresponds not with their geographic boundaries, but with the number of electoral votes they get. Here's a version designed by the New York Times, with each state scaled by electoral votes. They've ditched the precise borders of each state in favor of squares, but still arranged them geographically, so it's easy enough to find your own state. Another approach from the Daily Kos makes room to report the popular vote from each congressional district. But so far, these ideas haven't been widely adopted. So does this mean that we're stuck with bad maps for another election cycle? Not necessarily. There are so many different ways to visualize information. Why not show a list of states or a series of bar charts? All of these methods tell you so much more than those ubiquitous red state, blue state maps.
So I hope you now understand that sometimes geographic accuracy is not always, it's not always that important, right? So for example, when I did a story for PRI, again, on the percentage of Latino voters in different states in the US, I chose to make what we call a honeycomb map or a hexatile map, right? Because I don't want to, because geographic accuracy here is not that important. What important is actually to show the different percentage of Latinos in each state, right? So we decided to use this map instead of the traditional map, because this one will let you look at each state more clearer. All right. These stories are again also trying, instead of using the European map, the Europe map, it is using a tile map, or we call a box map, right? But still, the boxes, each box represents one country, but still, they are arranged in a way that is, according to the geographic locations. So you still have a sense of the Europe continent, where all the countries are located. But in this case, you won't see one country that has a huge area, or the country is overly emphasized, in the map, right? So just to be careful when you are picking your map, right? Whether the geographic accuracy is really that important. So now we are going to talk about what's a digital map. When we want to make a digital map, there are several things that we should understand, right? A map is made of points. And each point on the map, it refers to one location on the planet, and the location is called, the point is made of two data points, sorry. And that set of data, that pairs of numbers is called coordinates, right? So your coordinates, the first one is usually latitude, and the second one is usually longitude. If you still remember your geography lesson in your high school or in your college, right? This is the latitude, right? Latitude is the horizontal lines. It starts from the line in the middle, what we call the equator, right? Which stands for 0. And then heading to north or heading to south, right? And longitude is the vertical lines, right? The line that start with 0, it's what we call the Greenwich line that pass through the Greenwich in UK, right? And then you have the lines here going to the east, and you'll have the lines here going to the heading to the west. And each lines are encoded in numbers. Usually, in the past, we used to write coordinates in the format of degrees, minutes, and seconds, right? Degrees, minutes, and seconds. So now, in the digital world, right, we usually convert the degrees, minutes, seconds into decimal points with positive and negative sign. For example, for the latitude, right, every line, all the lines that are above the equator, they are in positive values. Below equator are in negative values, right? So the same goes for the longitude. Everything on the east side of the Greenwich line, they are positive. And all the lines that are on the west side of the Greenwich line, they are considered negative, right? And on the map, right, we don't just put a location or a dot. sometimes we join the dot together to form a polygon. It's an area, right? For example, the boundary of a district, the boundary of a country, right? It is joined by different coordinates, right? And become a closed area, right? So we call it, in digital map, we call it a polygon. Sometimes it is called a shape, right? And because of this, the nature of the data, right? We cannot store the shape or the polygon in a spreadsheet file. We cannot do in by column and rows, right? So there are different formats to store this kind of information, right? You will see KMZ, KML maps. These are the files that are preferred by Google Maps and Google Earth. We are going to use the KML map for our Google map later. They're also called shape file, right? Usually shape file, it comes together with other complementary file, and it comes in a folder or a zip file. And if you want to use the shape file in a zip file, you don't have to unzip it. You can just use a zip file, all right? There are also other formats called GeoJSON, TopoJSON, and many other formats, right? So but some of the map applications, they only accept the map files, the shape. If you want to, like, I want to put the shape on the map, right? I want to visualize it. They only accept one format, you know. So for example, the Google map, they only accept KML. But your map file, right, that is provided to you by your government, right, maybe, is in shapefile format or in GeoJSON format. So how do you do that? So you need to do conversion. And there's a very good conversion tool. It's called MyGeoData Converter. All right, it is able to convert between, you know, all these different file formats. All right. Then once you have your shape file or your polygon, right, and you have all the different locations, now you want to put them on a map, right? So the online map, it works like if you know how to use Adobe Photoshop, right? You have different layers. So this is the layers of the colors, this is the layer of a line, and these are now layers. When you combine them together, they form a visuals, right? They form a graphic. So for map, it's the same thing. First, you have the base map. Base map is where you see, for example, the Google map is a base map, right? You see the borders of each district, countries. You also see some details on the streets and things like that, right? And above of the base map, you're able to put polygon. Or you are able to put the bubble. Bubble means the different dots, right? Different coordinates you can put. You can put multiple polygons files on the base map, right? And when they are all put together, and you look at all the different layers from above, from top, then you're able to see the base map with the data that you put up on the map, right? So I'm going to use Google My Maps so that you can imagine, you can look at it, you know, in a more direct way. You can still put like the bubbles, the dots, right? Using the Excel or CSV files, right? Because these are not polygon, these are not shapes. These are like dots, right? Dots can be stored as a spreadsheet because you just have to put the latitude and the longitude. Then you're able to, you know, define the locations of each dot that you want to put on the map. But a shape or a polygon is different, right? It is joined by many sets of coordinates. So those shapes are stored in file format like KML or SHP or GeoJSON file, right? So just remember that. If you want to put a polygon, a shape on the map, then you should look for this kind of files. If you want to put different locations, for example, all the locations of the schools or hospitals on the map, then the locations can be stored in a spreadsheet file, right? I'm going to skip the colors. You can look at the colors on, there's a very good tool called Color Brewer tool that can help you to pick colors for your maps, right? So I will straight away go into Google My Maps. Before that, I'll just look at this. When you're using colors for your map, try to avoid rainbow color. You know, this is what we call a rainbow color. So you see how you can simplify the use of color in a map. All right, so you can see now the before and after. the rainbow map become a much simpler and clearer map. All right. So when you pick your colors, try not to use too many colors, right? The last thing before we go to our live demo is the usability studies. Again, I have said this in my webinar, the first webinar, is that before you publish your graphics, your maps, or is a interactive maps, right? Trying to test it with several users before you publish it. You don't need to have many users. Just 5 users here, it's around here, 5 users allows you to find about 80% of the usability problems. Okay, so don't show it to your journalist colleagues, right? Show it to people like the marketing department, to your HR department, to your friends, your relatives, your siblings, right? Preferably your target audience. If you are publishing this for a business community, find 1 or 2 managers, salespeople to look at your maps. And when you're doing the testing, show them your graphics on the mobile phone. If you know that most of your audience access your content from mobile phone, show them the mobile phone and don't explain anything to them. Just show them for 5 seconds, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then close it and ask them, what did you get from my graphics, from my map? What kind of information you get? If the information that they tell you is different from what you want to show them, it means that you have to redesign your map because your map is not working. It is not delivering what you want to deliver. Right? So do the testing first before you publish it. That is very, very important. Sometimes we fall in love with our own maps, with our own visualization. We think they are the best in the world, and sometimes our understanding is different from our target groups. Right? So always check, test before you publish it. Right, I'm going to show you how do you use Google My Map. You can just go to Google just Google My Maps, okay? Then that's the first link. If you click on the link, you will open up. As long as you have a Google account, you will have Google My Maps, all right? So if you have never done a map before, there will be no maps here, right? And then you can just click create a new map, all right? So it looks like exactly like the Google map that you have been using, all right? So currently we are in Malaysia, Southeast Asia here, Malaysia and Indonesia. So then the first thing, of course, you give a title to your map, okay? For example, deforestation in Batu Pahat. Right? For example, this is my hometown and where I am staying right now because I cannot go back to my house in Kuala Lumpur because I'm stuck here due to the lockdown. Right? You can also give descriptions, right? Some descriptions here. Remember that everything here that you wrote, right, will be able to access by your readers. All right. Some descriptions here. Save, all right. Then now you can search for, let's say I'm going to search for Batu Pahat, where I'm from. Okay. Let's say that I want to do a story about the forest, the Pit Swam forest, right here. Let's say I want to do about the story here, right? So most of the time we want to show our readers, right, where are the locations that we are doing our reporting, right? So Google My Maps is actually easiest way to do that, right? So after you select the area that you want to highlight, first you need to remove this thing. So you look at the panel here, there's an untitled layer, right? So as I told you just now, maps work by putting layers to layers to layers, right? So we are going to give the layers a name. So let's say this is the forest log, right? Okay. Then here I am able to draw my own maps here. If I don't have a file that I want to import into Google My Maps, right? I know exactly the area that I'm reporting on, and I don't have to rely on any maps given by any authority. You click on this and add a line or shape. Then you can say that, okay, this is the area that I'm reporting about. Okay, just join them together, you become a polygon. Yeah. Then you can give a name, right? For example, deforestation by company A. Okay, and then some descriptions about the deforestation activities here. Okay, save. Right. You're able to change the color as well. So for example, you're going to put it in red color. Okay, you can change the transparency as well. All right. Okay. Okay. Right. So let's say this is an area that the deforestation is happening, right, by a certain company, and you can see that there's a road here, right? And let's say you want to put in, there are some clashes happening between the local people and the companies, the loggers that are coming in to cut down the trees, right? You want to put those locations. You can use the marker. So just now we are using the line, right? You can actually use a marker. So let's say I put a marker here. Clash between villages and loggers, right? And then you talk about the incident, blah, 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 right? Okay. And you're also able to change the style of the icons. For example, because it's a clash, right? Then maybe we put something like a clash, places, transport, crisis. Yep, let's put a crisis there. What is a good symbol for clash? Explosion. Yep. And we put in, all right, okay. Then I'm also able not just to put the description, I'm also able to put a photo, all right? You can find a photo from, for example, I can search YouTube, Google image search. Let's say deforestation clash. So, of course, you need to prepare your, you should prepare your photo beforehand. This is just an example, right? Save it. Sorry, select. I cannot save the photos. Not sure why. Maybe because my connection is not good. Select. Yeah, or maybe it will appear later. All right, it's okay. You can also upload your own photos, or you can search online, right? So this is where you can put your markers. You can put multiple markers, of course. All right. You can also do, for example, like you can just draw a line, right? For example, I can draw a line here. Add line or shape. Okay. So let's say I want to escape route. For example, after the clash, the villagers escape further into the forest, right? And then I can put another marker here and saying this is the village center, whatever. I just made up things, right, guys? Okay, just to show you that how you can use, right? So after you have done all this, if you are happy with this, right? Now you're able to embed the map into your website, right? So remember, you need to fix the zoom level. Okay, do you want your map to appear like this, right? Or you want your map to appear at this zoom level. So you need to set the zoom level nicely. So for example, like this, right? And before I publish it, I will have to go and click on several things, right? First thing is to set default view, which means that this is the view that when my users look at my map, they will look at this view. So I set default view, okay? And you have to click share. Now your map is private, right? You need to change to public on the web. Save it, okay? Done. And now you're able to click embed on my site. All right. So everything is under this menu, and here, the share, the embed, they're all here. Okay. Then you can click embed on my site, and you will able to get this frame, what we call a iframe. So if you are running on a WordPress or most of your content management system, CMS, will be able to embed the map using iframe. So if you don't have access to your system and you want to try how your iframe looks like when you embed it, right? The map looks like when you embed it, you can try this tool called codepen.io. It is just a simple tool for you to test the embed code, right? Okay, to test your embed code, you don't have to. Oh, this is annoying. Truck. This is not a truck, right? Truck. Come on, give me access. All right, you don't have to even have to register any account. Just click start coding, and you can paste your embed code under the HTML box, right? Just paste it here, and you're able to see your map. This is what your users will have, you know, when you embed this, you embed the map on your web page, right? So my advice is, you always, there's a tag here called width, right? Always change it to 100%. Okay, because why? Because 100% means that it will take up all the space. The width will take up all the space, right? Because this is good when you're publishing on desktop, it looks like this, right? If your content is on mobile, then it looks like something like this, right? So this is a nice zoom level for mobile, correct? So when your readers when you embed this map, your readers will be able to click on it and look at the name, the description that you have put in, including the video or the photo that you have put in, all right? Okay, so this is the easiest and the simplest way to embed a map. The good thing is that it is using Google Map, and in our region, you know, in Southeast Asia and Asia, we all know that Google Map is actually very good. It's very familiar to our audience, so everyone knows how to use Google Map, and everyone knows how to locate their houses, their office, you know, on Google Map, right? So it's very familiar to them, right? This interface. One more thing I want to show you is that you can actually change the base map. Remember that the base map is the map at the base, at the bottom of the layers, right? You can change it to, for example, to the satellite maps, right? So once you change it, and then you click on set default view, and you don't have to change your embed code. Your embedded map will update automatically. So don't do stupid things on your maps here, right? Because it will be reflected straight away in the map that you already embedded on your websites, right? Everything is live, okay? So I just put the link, the iframe code here. I should be able to see my map with the satellite images now. Okay, it's not showing because the internet connection is not that fast. Just give it a few more minutes. It will show you the satellite images that you just updated here. So instead of sometimes satellite images is better, because it is able, if you are working on, for example, deforestation issues, of course the satellite images is much more better, right? Because you are able to show, you know, whether there are trees or there are plantations or things like that. So it depends on you. There are different base maps here that you can choose from, all right? So once you have changed this, remember that it will be reflected straight away in your embed map. Okay, let me try again to see whether it has been updated. Yep, so you can see that now it is showing the satellite images, right? Because I have switched the satellite images. So if I go in and change the photos here, change the descriptions here, right? I don't need to click any save button. It will be immediately reflected in the embedded map, right? So beware of that and be careful of that, right? Don't go and just simply change anything, and because your readers will be looking at the things that you have changed. All right. So this is the simplest way to use Google My Maps. We are at 4 now. If you allow me to just use another 5 minutes, I am going to demonstrate to you another maps using imported data files, right? Very quickly. Let me go back to my Google My Maps. Once you created a map, right, your maps will straight away appear here, okay? You don't have to like save it, right? All your maps will appear here, all right? Now I'm going to create a new maps. I'm going to import some data. I'm not going to draw my own shapes and put my own markers. I'm going to import some data, okay? So there are 2 layers, there are 2 data sets that I have shared with you in the share folder. Remember the link that I share with you? This link. If you go to this link, you will be able to access this folder. And under this folder, there's a data sample. There's a notes and links. Notes and links is this Google Doc that I tell you where did I get the data from, and some of the, the map format converter page and other things, right? So if you go to the data samples, there are 2 data files here. One, you can see that is a CSV file, which is a spreadsheet. The other one is actually a KML file, right? So KML means the file of a shape or a polygon, right? I'm going to show you when I import them into the map, what would happen. So again, I can give a name to the RSPO versus forest fire in Indonesia. This is my map. I will import the file. First, I'll put in the KML file, right? It is loading. While it is loading, let me just look at the chat room. All right. Right. Any Q&A question? Yeah, cool. So you can see that this is a file that I get from the Global Forest Watch website. Again, you can find the file source in the notes and links, right? It is showing me the RSPO certified oil palm supply bases in Indonesia, right? For those who are familiar with palm oil plantation, you should know what is RSPO. I'm not going to explain here. So the map file which shows me that this, you will see that all the red colors, right? You see that these are the different polygons, right? There are multiple polygons from this KML file. And if I click on this file, I will show that these are actually plantation or supply base, right? Of palm oil plantation. So you can see that who is the RSPO member? This is the company that owns the facilities or the plantation. It could be a facilities, it could be a plantation, right? They are called the supply base. Okay. So these are all the RSPO members, the supply base that they owned in Indonesia. So you can see that in Kalimantan, there are many of them. All right. So I have this. I can then again I can change the color one by one. If I don't want to do that, I can change from individual style to uniform style. And then I can change all the colors at one go. For example, I use purple color. Okay. So now you see that all the polygons become purple color. I can also change the transparency, right? So less transparent or more transparent. Okay, this is the style that I want to use, right? So now I'm going to do analysis. I want to look at the forest fires because I want to know whether forest fires happen within the within these areas, right? Because if you are RSPO members, right, you have a responsibility and you have guidelines to follow to make sure that forest fire don't happen in your area, right? So in that case, we always have this haze problem every year, right? Where the plantations, they use the fire to burn the old plantations when they want to plant, okay? So that always creates the air pollution problem in this region. So for example, right, this is just an example, right? Don't take it serious because I'm not an expert in this issue. So I'm going to add another layer. Sorry, click another layer. So remember, the first layer is the RSPO supply-based maps, right? The second layer, I'm going to add the forest fire locations. Forest fire that happened in the month of April this year, okay? Where did I get the data? If you look at the notes, I get the data from NASA, okay? NASA has 2 or 3 satellites that monitor forest fires, okay? So the data file that I have been using, if I open up in the Google spreadsheets, and brightness, scan, track the date of the fires, the time of the fires, which satellite, instrument, and there are other criteria, right? If you go to the NASA website, then the website will explain to you what are all these different variables mean, okay? But I know latitude and longitude is the location of the forest fire. And how many forest fire are there? 1,400, right? Because the satellites they can detect even very, very small fire, you know. So you might want to filter it so that you only look at, you know, the big fire, right? Maybe you can look at the brightness, you know. But other technicals, I am not sure. I'm not an expert here, right? I just want to show you that how you can import the files into a Google My Maps. So first, after you import the file, it will ask you, choose the columns to position your place marks. So select the columns from your file that tell us where to put the place mark on the map. So for my case, the location of the forest fire is under these 2 columns, latitude and longitude, right? So it is already clicked latitude and longitude because Google Maps will automatically try to detect. When it sees latitude, longitude, it assumes that, okay, this is the location data, which is correct, okay? So I'm going to click continue and pick a column to use as a title of the place mark. So all the place mark, all the markers, right, have a title. So which column, the data in which column that you want to put it as a title? I'm going to put the date, right? So I'm going to select the date and I click finish. Okay. It has, we have about 1,400 forest fires in the month of April. So it might take some time for Google Maps to load. Depends on how fast your connection is. If you have questions, please put it in the Q&A box. After this, we'll look at the questions, all right? Now you see all the fires, right? In these areas, right? Okay. So we can do an analysis now. Right? We can look at if there are any fires that happen within the RSPO supply base, right? We can go through and then we can then zoom in and trying to find. Okay, so this is very helpful for our analysis, right? This is April. Let's say you want to focus on this, right? Okay. Here, right? This is Sumatra. If you click on it, it will tell you that again, you know, latitude, longitude, the brightness, and all those things. Okay. You are able to edit it. If you don't want your users to look at all the data, you know, because some of the data are not very relevant, you can untick them, right? So when the users click on them, they only see the important data, the data that you want to, the details that you want to show them, right? You can, of course, again, change the style of the symbol. So in this case, we are going to put fire, right? Fire, fire. What is fire? Animals. Okay, guys, you go and find the fire, right? I remember there's a logo fire. Just that I cannot find it now. Ah, here. Cool. Okay. And I'm going to change the color to red color. All right, so we have the fires, right? So again, remember that the maps work using layers, right? So this layer, the first layer that we import is the polygon layer. The second layer that we import is the location layer, right? The markers layer. So we can actually hide the layer. You can see that if you hide this layer, you don't see the fire anymore, right? The same goes if you hide the polygon layer, you don't see the polygons anymore, the shapes. So this is what I meant by layer, right? Okay. So in this case, we can also change the base map. Okay. This is obviously a plantation because you can see the grid lines, you know, right? And if you click on the polygon, it will also tell you what is this. Indo-Sawit Subur, I think it's a palm oil plantation. Okay, so let's say this is the map that I want to show my readers. I want to embed it in my stories, right? I'm done with this already. You know, I am going to, again, the same process. First, set the default view. Set this as the default view. Okay, click on set default view. The second thing is make it public. Public, save, done. The third map, on my site, copy and tried it on code pen. Okay, remember change the width to 100% so that it is mobile responsive. Okay, you can also change the height if you think this is too. Okay, let's see. Oh, so it is not focusing on that area yet, right? So it might take some time for it to, so you can click again, set default view. It might take some time for it to be updated here, all right? And you can change the height if you think that this is too big for your website. You can change it to say, let's say 300, and you will get much shorter map. Yep, all right. Okay, after a few minutes, it will be updated to show you at this zoom level, as well as this location. All right. So that is all I want to show you. Okay, using Google My Maps, which is I think the easiest way to make map. This is just an introductory course. So if you want to use, you want to make more sophisticated maps, right? There are two tools that I recommend. First is called Data Wrapper. It used to charge you for the traffic that you receive, but now since December last year, they make it free. So now it is a very useful because there's no limit on the views that you get from your maps. It is the data visualization tools that you can make data visualization, not just maps. But the maps are quite good as well. The advantage of Data Wrapper is that they have more than 1,000 maps for you to choose from, 1,000 base maps. It includes all the base maps, includes all the countries in Asia. So it's very good for us, all right? For us based in Asia, I mean. The other one is called Flourish. I have introduced this tool last week to you to make data visualization, right? It is also a very powerful tool to make maps, right? The advantages of Flourish is that it can make interactive maps. It can make animated map, right? like these two maps that I'm showing you now, but they don't have the country maps for Asian countries, right? So if you want to make Asian countries map, not a world map, right, and you don't have your own map file, then you should opt for data wrapper. If you have your own maps file, or you want to make a world map or a regional map, then Flourish, you can go for Flourish because it has more customizations features, and you can make very fancy maps, right? But remember, right, we are not trying to make the fanciest map in the world. We are trying to deliver information. Okay, the other tools that if you have time, you can explore. The first one is QGIS. We call it QGIS. QGIS is a very popular tool among map makers because it is open source, which is free, and is offline. You need to install it on your machine, and you're able to do not just visualization, but a lot of geolocation analysis, a lot of manipulations on your map files. You can do almost everything on QGIS. The second one is Carto. Carto is an online tool, very powerful. You can also do geolocation analysis. The disadvantages is that you have to pay for an account. And the other Google tools are Google Earth Pro. Some of you might have used it before. Google Earth Engine Time-Lapse. If you have time, you can explore them. The new product is called Google Earth Studio. If you want to access the Earth Studio, you have to apply for it. There's a form for you on the website that you can fill up. And if you are selected, they will give you access to the tool. Google Earth Studio is very good at making for TV broadcasts, for animation of satellite images and Google Maps. All right, so these are the tools that you can try. And all of these tools, right, including the data wrapper as well as Flourish, they all have very good online tutorial. So if you don't know how to use it, just go and find their online tutorial. There are so many tutorials out there because they are all very popular tools. All right. And same as last week, before I end my sessions, if you are interested in data journalism, right, making a map is just part of data journalism. If you're interested, here are 5 newsletters that I subscribe to, and they will keep you updated about what is happening in the world of data journalism. If you want to have more tutorial, online courses, or books to help with data journalism, how do you start data journalism? These are some of the resources. I also have a guidebook on best practices for data journalism. You can download it for free. The link is in the PowerPoint presentation. The book was published by MDIF, the Media Development Investment Fund. They make it free for everyone to access the book. And that's all for my presentation today. Sorry for the overshooting, 80 minutes longer. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Let me look at the question and answers. Yeah, Nora, can I? Yeah.
Absolutely. I was just going to say we have a few questions from our participants in the Q&A box, and then there's maybe 1 or 2 in the chat as well.
All right. The first one, where can we get publicly available location-based data sets? Oh, there are many of them. You should look at my slides that I shared in my first webinar. There's one slide that shows all the different data sources that you can access, right? I have shared a list of data sources from there. Or, if you're looking for any specific data source, feel free to email me, right? To email me and I can try and help. How do I calculate the area of deforestation? Yeah, there's Google Maps is not for you to calculate the area, but you can do this kind of analysis using QGIS, or Carto. Carto is also able to calculate size, right? Or if you have access to Global Forest Watch, right? Their interactive map also give you the sizes of different forests. Depends on what data you're looking at, but those will have to be their own data sets. So if you have your own data sets, you want to calculate the area, the best option is for you to go for QGIS, right? Who owns the copyrights of these maps? Good questions. You own it. Yeah, you own it. But of course, just like you're using all the other Google products, right? They also have access. But the copyrights is still with you. Just like you publish a spreadsheet using Google spreadsheet, Google Sheets, right? The spreadsheet is still you. It's still it's still under your ownership, right? Where to create the KML file? This is a good questions. So if you want to create your own KML file, right? You can either go to a database to download the KML file. For example, what I want to say is that, for example, I go to the Forest Global Watch, right? And they have the KML file for just now I showed you the RSPO supply basis, right? I download my KML file from there, right? But if you want to create your own KML file, I'll just share with you my screen again. You can use Google My Maps to do that. Remember that just now I show you my first maps. Very quickly, I'll just go to my Google My Maps. The first maps that I made, right, about a deforestation area, for example, yeah, this one, right? Remember, I manually draw the shape, this shape, right? And I put in the line as well as the markers here, right? I'm able to export this information that I created into a KML file. So what I can do is that I can click here and I can click export to KML, right? So I can export either one layer, or I can export the entire map. If I export the entire map, then I click download, right? I will then get download a KML file in my computer. So now let's say I want to import that file, right? Okay, I hide all the layers so there's no data here now. I add a new layer, okay? So the new layer, it's my KML file, okay? So now I can import the KML file that I just downloaded just now. I just want to show you. Oops. Sorry. Right? And you see, this is how it looks like. It is still loading. Yep. So I can, so which means that after I create all these strips, right, I can then download it and pass it to my colleagues or pass it to another person or share it on internet. Then the other person, the other people can download the KML file and they can visualize the file in Google My Maps or other map making applications. All right, is that clear? Okay, the bit.ly link is not working. It should be working. You just have to copy and put in the.
They're referring to the Google
last week
folder from last week. Yeah. So maybe we can just take a look after this webinar and we'll update it on our website to make sure that everyone has access.
Just hold on a minute. Let me see if I have that. Yeah, maybe I remove it because my Google Drive I don't have enough space for my Google Drive. No, it's still working. Still working. I just access it. You can try again. Let me just put in the chat box the link to all panel. Okay. Yep. Yep. So this is the link. bit.ly RJF Database 2020. Okay. The webinar isn't.
Oh, it does say that the file is in your trash, so we can always do an
okay, guys. I'm going to bring it back from the trash, and then you all can access it. All right. Sorry about that.
On our site. Thank you.
Yep.
Perfect.
Perfect. So that's all for today. Nora, hand it back to you.
Thank you. It looks like there are a few more questions, but we can follow up one-on-one. I know we're a little bit over time and we want to be mindful of everyone's schedules. So thank you so much for joining. We will be following up with links not only to recordings of this week's webinar and the resources that Keng has shared, but also information from last week, since we got a lot of interest from those of you who spoke to us via the chat feature here. If you would like to join us for our final webinar focused on Southeast Asia for the moment, we may plan more for this year. Please also check out our website. Again, we'll follow up with links, and we'll be discussing investigating environmental crime, looking at data, people, and financial flows early next week. So thank you so much again to Keng and Hari for your time today, and I look forward to staying in touch with you all. Bye-bye.